What if I told you Colorado was once so lawless? It had 3 separate governments all claiming control at once, where gold miners fought with cannons, and a single silver strike built an opera house in the middle of nowhere. This is the untold history of Colorado, from ancient cliff cities to marijuana legalization. How the West was truly one in America's most vertical state. The mysterious beginnings of Colorado, a land of ancient footsteps and foreign claims. For over 13,000 years, the land that would become Colorado has been a silent witness to the passage of time, where ancient peoples left their mark in the form of mysterious artifacts, some dating back as far as 8,720 BCE. From the nomadic Paleo-Americans to the peaceful Pueblo peoples in the valleys and mesas, Colorado's vast landscapes were home to diverse native tribes like the Ute, Apache, and Comanche. But the story takes a dramatic turn when European empires cast their eyes on this wild and untamed territory. The Spanish, claiming the region as part of Nuevo Mexico, clashed with American interests after the U.S. acquired the eastern Rocky Mountains in 1803 through the Louisiana Purchase. In 1806, the daring Zebulon Pike led an expedition into the heart of the disputed lands, only to be captured by Spanish forces, marking the beginning of a complex, centuries-long struggle for control over Colorado's rugged, rich lands. The shifting borders of Colorado, a land of conquest and dreams. In the early 19th century, Colorado was a land caught in the grip of shifting empires and fierce disputes. The U.S., through the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819, relinquished its claims to vast swaths of land in the South and West, paving the way for the creation of Missouri and the uneasy expansion into territories of uncertain futures. As Spain crumbled and Mexico rose, the struggle for control over this wild land intensified. By 1848, after the brutal Mexican-American War, Mexico was forced to surrender much of what is now Colorado to the U.S. through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Meanwhile, American settlers, driven by dreams of gold and new frontiers, began carving paths into Colorado's rugged terrain, first through the Santa Fe Trail and later in search of the fabled goldfields of California. But the land was not without its tension. The Mormon settlers, with their ambitious vision of a vast theocratic state, collided with the federal government's refusal to recognize their claims. It wasn't until 1851, with the founding of San Luis, that the first permanent Euro-American settlement was established, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Colorado's complicated and turbulent history. The gold rush and the looming storm, Colorado's struggle for identity. In 1854, as the nation stood on the precipice of a monumental divide, Senator Stephen A. Douglas's compromise drew lines across the American heartland, creating the territories of Kansas and Nebraska and leaving a turbulent, unclaimed region in between. It was a land where the fervor of pro-slavery and anti-slavery factions clashed, a volatile battleground for the soul of the nation. In 1859, desperate gold seekers, determined to stake their claim in this untamed land, formed the Provisional Government of the Territory of Jefferson, a fleeting attempt to carve out their own piece of sovereignty. But the weight of the nation's conflict, now spiraling towards civil war, proved too heavy. When Abraham Lincoln's election in 1860 ignited the Southern states' secession, the Union government, in an effort to solidify its power, quickly admitted Kansas as a free state, leaving Colorado's western goldfields to simmer in a limbo of unorganized chaos. Amidst the gold rush and the shadows of war, Colorado's fate hung in the balance, its identity still waiting to be forged. Colorado's birth amidst war and gold. On February 28, 1861, President James Buchanan signed the Act of Congress that birthed the Free Territory of Colorado, marking a new chapter for a land long known for its rugged beauty and untapped potential. The region, named after the Colorado River with its red-brown silt, was officially carved into the U.S. map. However, the echoes of war were soon heard as the Civil War erupted just weeks later, with South Carolina's artillery targeting Fort Sumter on April 12, 1861. Though many gold seekers harbored Confederate sympathies, the majority stood firm with the Union. As the conflict raged, in 1862, Confederate forces aimed to seize Colorado's goldfields and disrupt the Union's hold on the West. But Colorado volunteers, with courage and resolve, marched to Glorieta Pass in New Mexico and faced the Confederate cavalry head-on. In a decisive battle on March 28, They defeated the Texans, crushing their supply lines and forcing their retreat. The Confederate dream of the southwestern United States crumbled, and Colorado stood its ground, forging its identity amidst the flames of war and the glitter of gold. The tragic shadows of Sand Creek and the Silver Rush. In 1864, amidst the chaos of the Civil War, the hope of settling Colorado's rugged terrain collided with unspeakable tragedy. Governor John Evans appointed Reverend John Chivington as colonel of the Colorado Volunteers with orders to protect white settlers from Cheyenne and Arapaho raids. But what was intended as protection turned into a massacre. Chivington led an assault on a peaceful encampment along Sand Creek, where the majority of the dead were women and children. His troops returned triumphantly to Denver City, claiming victory over 500 warriors. Yet officers who witnessed the scene spoke of the horrific mutilation of innocent lives. U.S. Army inquiries condemned the act, and though the nation's incoming president demanded accountability, no one was ever punished for the massacre that would forever haunt the land. Yet amid this dark chapter, Colorado's future was being written in silver. As the Civil War's grip loosened, a few persistent prospectors struck silver near Argentine Pass in 1864, igniting the beginning of a precious metal rush. The construction of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1869 connected Colorado to the rest of the country, fueling further growth. However, the wealth came at a steep cost. The Ute people were displaced in 1873 after rich veins of silver were discovered in the San Juan Mountains, marking the end of an era for the indigenous people of Colorado, even as the state was transformed into a land of fortune and conflict. The Centennial Rise, from Silver Rush to Statehood. On August 1, 1876, Colorado achieved statehood, earning the proud title of the Centennial State, marking a new chapter in the country's history, just 4 weeks after the nation's 100th birthday. This was a time of wild transformation and boundless ambition, as the discovery of a massive silver lode near Leadville in 1878 triggered the Colorado silver boom. The Sherman Silver Purchase Act of 1890 propelled mining to new heights, while the gold strikes at Cripple Creek soon followed, drawing a new generation of hopefuls. Yet, Colorado's greatest achievement came in 1893, when women in the state were granted the right to vote, making it the second state in the nation to allow universal suffrage, and the first to do so through a popular vote. But with the repeal of the Sherman Silver Purchase Act that same year came a devastating economic collapse, particularly in mining and agriculture. The state, however, proved its resilience. Slowly but surely, it began to rebuild, and by the early 20th century, the rise of Denver's floriculture industry, known as the Carnation Gold Rush, signified a turning point, giving hope to a recovering state. Through hardship and triumph, Colorado's identity was forged in silver, gold, and the unyielding spirit of its people. The blood and struggle of Colorado's dark century. The early 20th century in Colorado was a time of bitter conflict and unrelenting struggle. Beneath the glimmering promise of the state's wealth, the laboring miners toiled in appalling conditions, sparking a violent series of confrontations. From the 1903 to 1904 Western Federation of Miners strike to the tragic Ludlow Massacre, where innocent women and children were killed, Colorado's mining communities paid a heavy price for their fight for justice. In the midst of these clashes, the state saw brutal strikes like the 1913 to 1914 Coalfield War and the Columbine Mine Massacre of 1927, where the violent repression of miners was relentless. Yet, amid these tragedies, another dark force was rising, the Ku Klux Klan. By 1924, the Klan had seized control of Colorado's politics, with its grip reaching into the state's highest offices and cities like Denver and Pueblo. Cross burnings became a haunting symbol of their terror against African Americans, Catholics, and immigrants. But even in the face of this oppressive tide, there were those like Philip Van Cise who fought back, leading to the Klan's eventual decline by the end of the decade. It was a century of bloodshed, injustice, and resistance. A dark but defining chapter in Colorado's history. Colorado, a century of struggle, growth, and tragedy. From the first political convention in the West to becoming a key player in the nation's history, Colorado's journey has been marked by significant milestones and profound struggles. In 1908, Denver welcomed the Democratic Party for the first major political convention in the West, setting the stage for the state's evolving role on the national stage. The state's population swelled to over 1 million by 1930, though it weathered the harsh storms of the Great Depression and Dust Bowl, emerging stronger after World War II. With an influx of immigrants, tourism flourished, and high-tech industries became pivotal to its economy. But Colorado's story isn't without its darker chapters. The 1957 plutonium fire at the Rocky Flats plant cast a long shadow of contamination on the state. Amid civil rights movements like the Chicano movement, Colorado became a trailblazer, easing restrictions on abortion in the 1960s. Yet, the state also bore witness to some of the darkest moments in modern history. From the Columbine High School massacre to the Aurora Theater shooting, the echoes of tragedy reverberated across its communities. Through it all, Colorado's resilience is reflected in its people, and the state's ongoing struggle for justice, peace, and progress continues to shape its legacy. Even as it made its mark in military history, with 4 U.S. Navy warships bearing its name, Colorado has never strayed from its complex and turbulent journey. So, does Colorado represent the best of American history? What amazed you most, the cliff dwellings, mining wars, or modern transformation? Debate below. If you enjoyed this journey through the Centennial State, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Next, we're exploring Arizona/Utah. So stay tuned on History Love.